Welcome, everybody, to Coach's Podcast. This is our second podcast. We did Weston Dressler week 1. If you want to see that, you can go back and watch him. Today, I'm pretty excited to do Matt Nichols and talk about him a little bit. I'm going to bring him in a second. But one thing I want people to have an understanding of, and I looked at it this morning, at the time, the Bombers were 1-4 in 2016. It was my first year. And I remember being at Sherlock Holmes restaurant in Edmonton, having a couple of drinks the night before the game, and I saw somebody else from the Bomber organization. We had just benched Drew Willie, and we were starting Matt Nichols. And I was so happy, I was so excited, and I was ready to go and play the football game. And I remember seeing somebody from our organization. He's like, "Aren't you nervous? We were starting a new quarterback." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. This guy's better than what we've been playing. He's going to do fine. He's going to be great." And he didn't do great. We went 8 straight wins after Matt Nichols took over, and that's going to be our guest today. He took over and really changed our fortunes, put us into the playoffs. It was a team effort, but he really was the catalyst for us. So let's bring in Matt Nichols. How are you, my friend? You've been to Sherlock Holmes many a time in your day, I'm sure.
Yeah, because I lived, my wife and I, pre-kids, lived in a little studio right next to it. So that was one of our favorite spots. So as soon as you said that, it was like flood of memories of our time, as a young player in Edmonton, living downtown right next to Sherlock Holmes. So yeah, I remember it well.
But let me talk about that a little bit. So in 16, we start out 1-4, and this is Osh's third year. He won 7 games his first year, 5 games his second year, and then the third year we start out everyone's saying nobody wants to fire Osh, but that if we don't make the playoffs, I'm sure they're going to have to move on. And we make the change to you, and you start 8 games, and you play well, but you also don't throw an interception for 8 games, which is pretty amazing. And as I've always said, and we'll get into it a little bit more on the podcast, but like you put us in a position where we make the playoffs. And once you make the playoffs, now you get more opportunities to get a free agent, and then everybody gets re-signed. And so, like, I think you are the catalyst for us to make the playoffs, to get Osh extended, to us build the team. Then all of a sudden Big Hill wants to come, and because you start winning football games and you believe you have a quarterback and all that stuff. So you are instrumental in that stuff, my friend. But welcome. I appreciate having you on, man.
Thank you.
First question I want to do is tell everybody what's going on with your life, your family, the kids and everything, where you live in. I think that's important for a lot of Bomber fans and CFL fans.
Yeah, I mean, luckily for me, I got to kind of do everything I wanted to do in my career. And, towards the end, we were looking at where we wanted to raise our family, where we wanted to live. My wife is always mad at me because I met her in college in Washington. She said, I married a California kid and you took me to Canada, and, took me to colder weather than where she was living in Washington. And so kind of at the end of the day, we spent a long time kind of in the north and cold weather, and decided to move back to California, where I'm from. So we live in Sacramento. Elliot and Parker. Elliot's 10. Parker turns 7 next week, which is crazy. Both of them, I'm basically work all day, and then full-time taxi dad. Take one of them to soccer or lacrosse every day. So they play competitive soccer and lacrosse. Parker's kind of just getting to the point of competitive. Elliot at almost 11. It's crazy how serious little kid soccer is, but she's a freaking beast on the field. She's the fastest player every game. It was really fun to watch. And for me, playing football, baseball, basketball, and golf growing up, I'm learning soccer and lacrosse, which is really cool for me. So, having 2 girls that are playing different sports, it's been really fun to see them grow. And man, just loving life. My body feels incredible. I don't get pounded into the ground every week. And so, there's a version after football that is scary when you're a player, but it's been incredible.
What are you doing for work? Tell everybody what you do for work.
Yeah, so initially I got my master's and was working at UC Berkeley at Cal doing fundraising. And then through actually Justin Medlock, met my now boss that convinced me to do commercial insurance. I didn't want to be the athlete cliche of going into insurance. I went and got a master's and was working in, kind of front office at a university, just to trying to avoid that almost. And then he convinced me to do it, but it's been incredible. I mean, the flexibility is incredible. I don't miss any of my girls' stuff. money's great. We can do whatever we want. And so it's been awesome. But basically, I'm work with a lot of small business owners or small to mid in my area. Doing basically property casualty life insurance for business owners, making sure business and personal stuff's protected. And so it's a different version, but also it's just talking to people, real life people that have problems and you're trying to solve them and connecting with people. And so all skills that I learned being in a locker room. So it's all transferable, and football taught me a lot and helped me be successful after football as well.
Cool. Excellent. Like I got you in studio now because I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to push you over to here. We're going to do speed round questions. So
these speed rounds, man, like I'm gonna give an answer, and then once we hang up the call, I'm gonna think about 5 better answers to every one of these questions.
What it's for, man. And you got to go fast. So I'm going to get ready. So I'll count you down. Like Dressler went too long. I had to start counting them down. So we'll do some speed round questions. There's so many, I don't know, the CFL fans just want it inside about some of the people you worked with and all the.
It needs to be CFL answers, not people
Yeah, I'd say more to cater to the CFL people. So, all right, who's the funniest teammate you played with?
Darius Bowman.
That's a good one. Yeah, and you played with him in Edmonton and Winnipeg, correct?
Yeah. And we're still in contact, and I sent him some of my favorite plays. He's coaching
high school, right?
Yeah, he was looking for some red zone stuff and some of our rub routes and just things that nice. We did. And so I'm still in contact with him.
Good man, Darius. All right, who's the best football player?
Just best all-around football
all-around player.
Let's say J.C. Sherritt.
Okay, excellent.
I got to play with him for 4 years in college and with and against in the CFL for almost 10 years. He's one of the best football players I've ever seen.
Excellent. Best athlete. Now, it might have been just this is the guy who was a sick athlete. Wasn't the best player, but was a crazy athlete.
Holy cow. I'm going to go with Chris Streveler.
Yeah, he was doing speed sweeps with Streveler. Like I have 2, and you wouldn't have bounced around. These guys are before your time. Michael Bishop, like the quarterback, like he could throw the ball.
I heard every story there is about him. Oh my
God, like he could throw the ball. I mean, like if you stood next to him, like his ass came all the way up to your shoulder, right? He was so tall, and he was just thick, and he was and then. Probably a guy named Mike Sellers who played for Edmonton. Winnipeg was an unbelievable fullback. He was like 270 pounds playing tailback, fullback.
Okay. Yeah, I think because for me, best athlete is he could play quarterback, he could play receiver, he could play running back, fullback. You could put him at DB or safety.
Yeah,
he could return kicks. Sure, he could freaking windmill dunk.
Okay, weirdest thing about living in Canada. You were up here 11 years or so. What was the weirdest thing?
One of the weirdest things is in every downtown city, you can just be driving in a lane and all of a sudden there's just cars parked in it. Like, I remember like coming around the corner to the backside of Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton. And I mean, you're going 50 miles an hour or whatever, however many kilometers that is. I lost my conversion.
Right.
So coming around the corner and all of a sudden, there's certain times of the day where you can be parked in this lane, and then there's certain times where you can't, and you're just rolling the dice on whether or not there's going to be someone parked in your lane. I can't believe there's not more just rear-ended cars in lanes. So that was like something to really get used to. In every city, it's like that. It'd be 2 lanes, and then all of a sudden there's just cars parked in the right lane.
Right. Toronto's notorious for it. You're like just driving, and a guy just gets out, even though there's no spaces. I'm just going to get out in the middle of the road.
Yeah, so that's one of the weirdest things. It took a little while to get used to.
What do you miss about living in Canada?
I mean, I could talk all day about this. We love Canada. Probably one of the biggest things, though, for us is Tim Hortons.
Is the coffee better than Dunkin' Donuts?
Honestly, the coffee's not even that great, but there's something about like getting a Tim's coffee and like the bagel breakfast sandwiches were incredible. And obviously for me, the memories of going into the facility at 5 a.m. So I'm at Tim Hortons at 4:30.
Yeah.
And just going to a Tim Hortons reminds me of that time. And then also, I still have it actually sitting right there. And when I won like CFL Player of the Month, I got like a $200 Tim Hortons gift card that has a picture of me on it.
Oh, nice.
From Winnipeg. And so like I see it on like pretty much every day sitting next to my computer. So that's something I definitely miss about Canada. And I think more than anything, it's not necessarily the coffee or the food. It's just got all the memories of being there from Tim Hortons.
Excellent. That's cool. Not bad. All right. I got your teammates embarrassing you segment. So I get a couple of questions. So I got two, I think, that are pretty good. A couple of them were, you know, somebody tried to call you out on basically Star Wars, and I'm like, I don't know, I like Star Wars too, and all that stuff. Like, I'll go back to this. Like, where is it? Right here. I'll go back to this picture right here. Right? I found this picture of me and you in an article that Ed Tate did years ago. And I was like, you know, we're probably just talking about Star Wars in that picture on the field.
Yep.
So, okay. Tell us this story. So at the end of training camp, at the barbecue, somebody comes up and taps you on the shoulder. Tell us what happened with players and stuff.
That's the craziest thing. Like, I'm first year in the CFL, and you're just assuming, you know, like when I got cut from the Cowboys, like, they gave me a phone call and said, bring your binder in, and you know what was happening. In Edmonton, if you made it to the end of training camp, so, you know, both preseason games, and you go to this team barbecue, and it feels like everyone there has made the team, but you know that there's still cuts that need to be made. And so you just sat there, and they kind of did like the welcome to Edmonton from like the team president and the board of directors.
You made the team. You're on the team.
Yeah, and we're all looking at each other like, not everyone here made this team. And all of a sudden, you know, I mean, I'll keep everyone nameless, but basically our GM and assistant GMs and scouts would walk around, tap people on the shoulders and tell you that you need to go talk to the GM or head coach. And half of those guys, you know, were going to be practice roster guys, and then half of them were cut. And you just sat there looking around, just like waiting for the Grim Reaper to tap you on the shoulder. It was a really wild thing. And it was for a couple of years. I think they did away with it. At least I hope they did. And I think they did. My only memory of it was my first 2 years. And I think that they did away with that. But it was a wild scene to just sit there and just hope that someone's not like, get away from me.
God. Did they let you even eat your hamburger? It's like, no, put that down.
I mean, it's your life that's on the line. That's how you feel. And so if they did give me food, I wasn't eating. I'm just staring at people like, get away from me.
I mean, that's crazy. Like, as a head coach, I did this in Ottawa, and I did this as the head coach in Winnipeg previously, and I know Osh did this. Like, we went over to where the players were. Like, I didn't even want like the players to walk across the street. Like, I cut every player, but like I took it from Osh that like I'm not even going to let the guy walk across because he knows he's going to get cut. I'm going to make sure he just walks 5 minutes downstairs, and that's the better way to treat people. That's crazy.
No.
All right. This is a funny one. Your pride and joy story. This is about somebody in college.
Oh my God!
Right?
Yeah. That's for my wife.
So tell us this whole story. This is a good one, and this is your like pride and joy story. This is your.
I mean, I guess, but well, I met Allie first day of college. Her high school boyfriend was a quarterback in Spokane. Was a walk-on at Eastern.
Eastern Washington, where you went to school.
Yeah, so we're the same age. I'm there as the full ride quarterback, and he was there as the walk-on quarterback. But we're both the two freshman quarterbacks, and so I actually kind of met her because of him. And yeah, he ended up being kind of a crazy dude, honestly. But you know, overall, I won the starting job. Me and Allie just became best friends. It was like her and her best friend, and then me, Greg Peach, and one of our other buddies. That kind of a group of five were just best friends. And so Allie lived with me as a friend and roommate before we ever started dating. And then, you know, we got together. Long story short, basically, you know, I become the 4-year starter. He transfers and leaves, never hear from him again. But his brother was actually a good friend and defensive lineman and really good best friends with Greg Peach. And so when I signed with the Cowboys, Allie's old boyfriend said this guy stole my job, my girl, and I was going to effing NFL. And so basically I'm like number one on people to kill list.
You're his arch nemesis.
Yeah, which he probably does. I mean, there's no way he's somewhere in the world and, cares anything about that anymore. But at the time, it was like really funny that was the phrase that I heard from his brother.
We'll have to send him this podcast.
Yeah.
Let him go, right? Just breaking hearts all over Eastern Washington.
That's right, yeah.
All right, so this is a segment I pull up sometimes if somebody happened, right? Like, and I always say, like, was there something you learned that was like, this is ridiculous what we're doing, but it turned out to be a cool thing? Crazy or genius, I have me underneath crazy, and next to crazy, I have Wally under genius. Let's settle that. And this is the Grey Cup 2011 media, where Wally and I went against each other in 2011. So do you have a crazy and genius of dealing with me as a terrible?
Yeah, I have plenty of crazy, like not good stuff from other coaches. Crazy genius is remember our first in 2016. You introduced follows to us. For everyone that doesn't know, that's basically one word tells everyone what to do. It's the protection, it's the formation, it's the route, it's everything. We inserted like 5 or 6 of them to start, and we would just go up and down the field, 4 or 5 times after practice. And it was just like, everyone's like, what the heck is this? Because if you're on a different hash, you had to flip the whole thing. So it's still called the same thing, but everyone had to know that if we're on the right hash, then everyone's got to flip it. So everyone's got to be on the same page. Otherwise you can look real stupid. And then all of a sudden we get up to 10, 15, 20, 25 of these things. And it's like, what is this guy doing? And then we got to the point where we were doing ones where we had a 1x4 diamond with like a double post wheel into the boundary and going as fast as we possibly can. And I probably threw, maybe half of my touchdowns on follows, and we came back against Montreal down 13 with 1:20 left because of follows. The second they blew that ball in, we were snapping it because of these things. And I still watch every CFL game, and I can't believe how slow people are and how time they waste trying to get a play lined up. And we spent so much time on it where it was like, at times it was like, can we just run some like our plays we're going to run in the game? But then these things were the difference in games. And the first time we ran the 1x4 diamond, I think there was one guy out there to cover 4 people because we went so fast and nobody knew what to do, and I just throw a layup 40-yard touchdown to Ryan Langford. It's like it was at first seemed crazy and ended up being pretty genius.
What crazy was for the players, the rookies, if you remember, as we get better at it, every year in training camp, we might install 8 that day because it's tied into the installation, and the players were terrified because we did a period every day where we went up and down the field, and they didn't even know the plays yet, and they're trying to remember the code words, and they're all like trying to study it, and I'm like, we're not cutting them. We're not doing this. We're just getting reps for 3 weeks. We don't need to know it for a month, right?
We went so fast that we had to implement a whistle at practice as the ball being set because there was actually once in a game where it was kind of an important part in a banjo. I think it was a banjo ball. Where Andrew free released out to the field and or maybe lined up out to the field.
Lined him up out, and they didn't cover him down. And because
we were going so fast that I actually snapped it right as the whistle was blowing, and they said it was right before the whistle, and so I threw a layup touchdown to him, but it didn't count because we were going so fast. So all of a sudden, at practice, it was like, okay, we go crazy fast, but we also need to wait for a whistle.
I have to yell, wait for the whistle. That's what my thing. It's my fault because I have to tell you over the headset, wait for the whistle, wait for the whistle. I will tell you, follows are still alive with the Bell Warriors under 16 football team.
Yes,
so we do 2 though. We only got 2 in, and we do the 1x4 verticals, and we do stretch. So we do a naked. So the follow stuff, that was a lot of fun, right? And making sure that we don't need to run a screen. We want to make sure we can push the ball downfield when people aren't ready, and you always did a good job of that.
Yeah, we used it, and you could use it for 2-minute stuff. Yep. We used it for just, if we had a big play down to the 30, we were running a follow.
Yep.
Just because defense is on their heels. let's just line up and go.
It's better to be a huddle team that occasionally runs a follow than a no huddle team all the time, I think. Yeah. Good. Well, that's good to hear, man. All right, let's go with this. Pregame ritual. Anybody, and I'm not saying yours, did anybody have like a crazy pregame ritual, or did you have one?
I didn't have a weird one. I mean, I was pretty consistent where I was, I don't want to bore you guys, but basically I read through the whole play sheet, and I actually have one right here. And so I would read through the entire thing in the morning. I could basically play the game out in my head because I knew what our first, second, and 4 to 6 was. I knew what our first, second, and 7 to 10 was, and I would go down the list. So basically I would play the game in my head in the morning. I would take like a 3-hour nap. I would go and get Subway or Pita Pit, go to the stadium, run through everything one more time. Went out to all 4 corners of the field and basically did like a 3-step, a 5-step, a 7-step to each side, just so I can envision being in that spot of the field so that when I'm there in a couple hours, it feels normal to me. And then always try to stand next to a Canadian during the national anthem. Something good. That I took a lot of pride in.
That's excellent.
Canada giving me that opportunity to play. We love Canada. That was kind of my entire pregame, and it was every game I was like that. You want to talk about weird though? I played as a guy in Edmonton that was a D lineman that would pee on his jersey before games so that O lineman didn't want to block him. Like there's some weird stuff going on out there.
Mark his territory.
I feel like I didn't have any weird stuff, but I saw plenty of weird stuff.
Any crazy conversations? You're like, what is going on? Like you're with all these guys all the time. And like I can remember after a game, like we lost, I think the 18 championship, we lost in the finals, and like nobody wanted to leave that team. Like we ended up, everybody, like Darvin went and got a barbecue. He was on the field barbecuing and making burgers for everybody and stuff. But like there's always crazy stuff going on in the rooms.
I don't know. I mean, locker rooms are just weird. I mean, I don't know that one stands out to me. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard the LeBron, Kobe, Michael Jordan argument where people almost fight over it. It's like I've been hearing this argument for 12 years in the CFL locker room. So there's that kind of stuff. But huddles, I always tried to be kind of weird in the huddle. I loved huddle. I loved that communication that I could have with my guys. I love no huddle. Half my college career, we didn't huddle, but also there's just things that you can't do unless you're in a huddle. And I remember during a TV timeout in a playoff game in BC, we ran like you would remember the play. I mean, we ran like a double reverse fake thing to maybe Ryan Smith and hit Dressler down the seam. It was the perfect look.
Yep.
But I remember it was a TV timeout before that, and I told the O-line, I'm like, we're running this like funky play. For them, it was just I don't know, whatever play action protection. Like they don't know what's going on downfield. And so, but being in a huddle, I can tell them, hey, this is like, we're faking a couple times. I need a little bit of extra time, and I'm going to throw a touchdown right here. Like I promise you, I'll buy you guys Nicolino after the game if you guys like hold up on this. And man, I remember like Stanley almost got beat and got back in position, and I kind of shuffled around him, and Weston was wide open and hit it for a huge play. And we're like running down the field, and Stanley's like laughing. He's like, you told us, and stuff like that. Like I remember at Ottawa, first play of the game, threw a hobo stutter to Ryan Langford for a touchdown.
Yeah,
and it was the same thing leading up to the game. Was like, hey, we're running like a double move first play. If I don't get sacked, it's a touchdown. And same thing, like remember like Yoshi and Stan, those guys just laughing as we're running down the field, like you told us, like we got you, and just stuff like that was the best in the huddle. When you promised something to them and you delivered, man, those guys would do anything for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, like I remember when we called, I forget the name of it, where we flipped 1x4. We flipped it back, and then the receiver threw it to Andrew Harris down the field, and we scored against Montreal. And Stanley in the huddle said, "We're really calling this? We're calling this in a game?" I'm like, "Yep, it scored." Yeah.
No.
Weirdest interaction with a fan. Do you have any crazy ones?
I mean, I have a lot of. I mean, towards the last couple of years in Winnipeg, like we couldn't go to a grocery store without someone stopping us and my daughters were pretty young at the time. It's like, why are these people always talking to you? And so it was pretty fun. But I mean, I had weird, I don't know about weird. I mean, I had some that were just like super fans would wait for me after games and that kind of stuff, but nothing super crazy. I mean, I had a butcher at a grocery store kind of tell me how bad I sucked and that they should play Strevler, and just told them have a nice day. I'm like, all right, man, I'm just trying to get some dinner. And so, I mean, there was plenty of that, but also I loved it because there's plenty of CFL cities where they couldn't care less about kind of what was going on. And so I just took all of it as, how passionate Winnipeg is about the Bombers. And, even if I had 4 great games with CFL Player of the Month, if I had one game that was not great, that what have you done for me lately? So I embrace that.
So I think what's interesting, like for 2016, when I came back to television, my weirdest, like fans used to always say this to me, like, and I was so happy to be back. I love working with Osh. I enjoyed it. And like, this is even before a season starts. Fans be like, yeah. Or maybe even during the season. And sometimes people will come up to me and be like, man, yeah, well, I just hope, they move on from Osh and make you the head coach again. And I'm like, no. I'm like, no. I was like, no, I don't. Osh is my friend. He hired me. Like, if he's not here, I'm not here. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't want that in any way, shape, or form. Don't ever say that to me again. Oh, fans are crazy with that stuff. That's funny. All right, that was good, man. So why I put this clip on here for one reason is when I knew Matt Nichols, like I can remember the day I'm like, ooh, Matt Nichols might be our best quarterback. And it was this read right here. And this is a play where I always talk to the quarterbacks. You're going to read it inside to the outside and then back down, which I ingrained in guys for years, something like it's a read. We read inside to the outside to the back down. And we're in training camp practice. And like every time I always do this, if this one's covered, everybody throws this one. If you can see the white stuff's going on, nobody gets out here. And this is where the money is. This is where the touchdowns are. So you did this in training camp, like, I don't know, the second week when we put this, what I would call Rogers in, and you threw a touchdown. And I was like, whoa, Buck, what was that all about? Like, it was an amazing play. And I was like, this guy can see coverage and he can process real quickly. And this is from a game a couple years later, but that's like the clip when I was like, oh my God, this guy knows, he can see pictures.
Yep. Which this one was, and it's weird how some stuff just like comes flooding back to your memory. I mean, this is, 2017, 18.
17, second half is early.
And I remember the corner was just playing so low. Like he was trying to make me think it was man. And we always talked about, halfbacks tell the truth, and it looks like man pre-snap. And as soon as the half starts backpedaling and turns the shoulders inside, I knew that there's no way he could get to an outside go. And so I stared at the inside just to get him to take one step, and knew that that's all we needed. So I didn't even look at the corner. I just knew pre-snap he was not going to be able to keep up with Darvin.
Yeah,
I was just staring at the halfback as he was backpedaling, so I knew it was cut. As soon as he turned his shoulders inside, just cut it loose down the sideline.
Here's a favorite one of ours. All right, same play, but I remember telling you guys at halftime, these guys don't know what they're doing. Hey, for guys who don't know, this is a read route where Weston Dressler is boundary number 3. I give him the choice. It's a dig, but if there's nobody over his head, run through it. And I told you guys at halftime, I'm like, I'm calling this the first, second, and long. And thank God you guys are on the same page.
Yep. Which with Weston, it was different than any receiver I ever played with. We would sit next to each other on an airplane and go through this exact play sheet. And I would tell him, and he would tell me, I mean, back and forth of, in this play, because he had a lot of read routes. Like you were just saying, like that route, 90% of the time is a 12-yard in. But there's looks where he can take it on a go. And there's looks where he can just kind of curl it up and sit. And so, we would sit next to a plane on we would go through every coverage we were going to see that week and what he was going to do. And he was never wrong. He saw this every game.
Made a mistake. This is 19. I just like, this is a big pass play, but I just like what you did with your eyes. We knew we were running a corner post. because Antonio Pruneau would always flip his hips, and he would lose sight of where I knew he would lose sight of the corner. He'd chase the corner, and then the post would be right there. And I'm like, you got to bring the safety down, though, Matt.
Yep.
And like he did that for this is like the second play of the game against Ottawa in 19.
Just stared to the field, got the other safety down.
Yeah, watch your eyes. It's awesome.
As soon as Pernod did that baseball turn, no way he's keeping up with Nick.
Nice. All the deep shots coming out. I got some other ones here. Oh, this one? Yes. You hadn't completed a pass in this game. So it was the first quarter. I think we might have been down, but we were I think we 2-and-out it every time. And I don't know, but you were 0 for 5 or whatever, for whatever reason, or we hadn't gotten a first down. I know you hadn't had a completion yet. And then this is your first completion of the game. It was awesome.
Which is funny. I mean, this is a heavy play action, basically Darvin post, trying to just get the safeties to stop their feet at all because they're never going to keep up with them. And this became kind of a staple for. I mean, we hit a lot. For us, we hit this a lot
with this action you did. But this is the one where you did your dance. You did your guy after the play.
Oh, this is a Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I actually McGregor.
I have it as a GIF on my phone that I still use for people.
So, you want to explain what this is?
Yeah, so this is what I was talking about. This is a 1x4 follow diamond. They didn't get lined up. And I'll tell you, I don't know how many times we ran this in practice, and this was never a ball that was thrown. This inside seam, it's just a clear out route. We're trying to hit the go down the sideline or the wheel or the check down to the guy that's running a little receiver screen. And man, just in the game, saw that they dropped coverage there. I started my eyes where I was supposed to, even though wasn't really what we had talked about. I still always stuck to my progression just in case that happened. Was able to pull the trigger on it and become a big play.
Here's one of my favorite play actions.
Throwback.
Nice and easy. Yep, man, you know what's happening. This is going to be simple. Just give me a pocket.
Yep. Nothing better than having a play like this and seeing that they're in man pre-snap, and it was just like, all right, still take your drop. Don't process. You know it's there. Just
tight turn to the A gap. Look at your tight turn, staying in A gap like we talked about.
Young quarterbacks here, and I would do it when I was younger too, is it's there, and all of a sudden you do a super quick fake and you just launch it up and you overthrow it by 5 yards. It's like, man, it's there. Just there's a reason why it times up with the fake. And
this isn't a big gain, but I just love this play. So
big choice.
Look at Dressler here. The art. I didn't show this to Dressler last week. We watched other things, but this is classic. He goes, I know I'm going to kill Johnny Sears. I'm going to make him think it's an out. And if this wasn't 2-man, this is a touchdown. See, because they have a safety on the back hash. Nice. All right, I'm going to now minimize this, and I'm going to go show this last one. Let's see if I can get this to play over here.
In the field. See what kind of routes the Bombers put on here, anticipating man coverage.
You can hear this?
Yeah, I can. I don't know what this. Oh, this is Clemson.
So Nichols, now more trickery. No way. Touchdown. Matt Nichols. Are you kidding me?
Ryan Smith wants to celebrate with me so bad, but I just never feel him tugging my jersey.
Can you have 2 fakes in one series?
We had just faked a field goal.
That was fun.
Keep the ball. And we practice this sucker every week.
Every week.
Roy Kohler.
And then I threw this all the way up into the very top level.
It's Rory's only touchdown.
Yeah, they went on a hunt. They ended up finding it. I think they gave the guy one of the Clarence Denmark signed jersey or something, and we got that all done for him and got the ball back to Rory.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go back here for the fans watching this. After we score, I made a point in meetings to yell at Matt because we always talk about celebrate with your teammates. So watch Ryan Smith, number 12 here. He's trying to celebrate with him. He's trying to celebrate. Hey, what's up? Hey, I want to say hi. Thanks. Nope. Oh, no. Oh, everyone's celebrating. And he walks away.
Oh.
Selfish. Nichols, selfish.
That's one of my favorite things right there too. Him, Dressler, and I had a 2-month stretch in 2016 where every day after practice we went and played video games and watched Friends together every day for like a month and a half. Our family, like Weston and I's families were gone, so it was just like the three of us playing Rocket League video game and watching Friends.
You know what I love about those special plays is I enjoy those. One of the better things for me is like practicing them, just having a meeting in the spring and go over 5 or 6 of them and you keep them all year. And that way you're not nervous during prep week putting them in. But like I can remember seeing that clip for years or whatever. If you watch the end zone shot or the wide shot, like Dom Davis was one of our quarterbacks at the time in those years. He knew the plays coming in. You see him like celebrating like you've ever seen, like when we hit it and everything. So those are fun for the players to call that type of stuff and keep going. That was good. All right, I got some pictures. All right, can you see these pictures now?
Yeah, it's Mother's Day brunch.
Mother's Day brunch, right?
No.
So
oh my God,
Elliot, I don't know how old she is, right there.
Almost 11 now. She was probably 4.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so we got her in our pictures. It was good with our family, with my crew. And we're going to talk about quarterback room and everything, but this is a great shot right here. So this is 2019 Grey Cup week. So this is like, and we'll talk about our breakfast. You know, at 8 a.m. every day we would have breakfast, and we would talk anything but football to start our first 15 minutes. And we'd go through stuff. And like I remember, this was the day before. It was probably day 3 of the Grey Cup, and Buck's like, we bring any football stuff? I'm like, nope, we'll do the whole meeting. And we came over, and we basically spent the whole quarterback meeting sitting here at that little restaurant by the hotel.
Buffalo something?
Yeah.
Buffalo something.
Yeah, the Buffalo something. So you got Zach, Sean McGuire, me and Buck, my man Trevor Knight, okay, from Nashua High School, my hometown, Matt and Strevy. So that was pretty cool. Grey Cup, quarterback room. Okay, and this is one of the things I always talk about, what's great about the Canadian Football League. Matt's got a torn ACL at the time. We are playing our first game, I think, in Montreal, our first road game. Josh had a flag football game, and I would miss it because I was traveling. I asked Matt, hey, can you go be with Josh, because he was having treatment. So we went on the field, and all the coaches were like, oh my God, Matt Nichols is on the sideline. They were all fired up.
That's cool.
That's a cool shot I found. Oh, look at this right here. Like,
what a time. That was so much fun.
And Trevor Knight getting the experience, that guy, like rent.
I mean, we had a few bevies before this, and then fans were like, had backpacks full of drinks. They were like dumping them into the back of our truck. And then at one point we didn't have any more, and so we wrote with a Sharpie on Trevor's chest that we need more beer, and we held them up, and fans were throwing them from all, like, it was actually kind of dangerous for a minute. They were just chucking them into the back of our truck. It was fun.
Oh, that's awesome. And then this is us after, quarterback meeting after the end of the year.
Yeah, that's at your house.
I thought that was a pretty cool shot of us and the crew. All right, that's one of the posters up in our room. I always thought it was important as a coordinator, is like, ain't about what I know. It's like what the players want to do, what the players think about. And, so that was a poster. Like, wait, what do you want to call? Like, I can pull all these clips up, but you guys got to execute it on the field. So that was one of the posters hanging up in our room to let the players know it's not just my knowledge, it's your knowledge, and you got to execute on the field. So I'll call whatever you want me to call. If you've got a good rhyme or reason why you don't like it. And that's kind of why, is Matt talked about earlier, the game plan, he knows all the calls, because I didn't give him just a wristband. I gave him, the game plan was a wristband. So it allowed him to call the plays, know what's coming and what area on the field.
And the great thing too is, helmet communication would go out from time to time, and I didn't have to just grasp at something. It was, 2nd and 4 to 6, and we had already run these first 4. Okay, so I'm just going to call yard right cluster 75 Hank X Apple, because that was our next play that we had on our list, and it's 2nd and 5 right now. So I didn't have to just grasp at it. Like I would have to do that at other places where helmet went out and you're just like, oh, what do I call on 2nd and 5 and come up with something. And then the great thing is we always had it where 4 to 6 was, you know, kind of man beaters, 7 to 10 was zone beaters. And then we'd come into a game and the defense coordinator would decide to flip that. And so we would just say, okay, now we're calling all of our 2nd 4 to 6 on 2nd and longs. We're calling our 2nd 7 to 10s on 2nd and medium.
Well, there was a game in Saskatchewan. We were backed up. The headset went out, and you called something. I don't know what the hell you called. And you're like, you came up to the side, the headset went out. I'm like, look at the sheet. We have a backed up play. He's like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think from then on, it was like, no problem.
Oh, that's good. All right, so, like, I want to talk a little bit about, like, we'll do our chasing the dream stuff first, and but then I want to talk about the QB room and stuff. So let me hide some of these things. So, you know, like, one of the things I like to talk to, like, if I go to colleges, I talk about, like, what the first couple years are. Because everyone's like, oh, you're a CFL coach or you're in television. It's like, yeah, well, I'm 20-something years in the business. What you got to think about when you first come out is working hard, doing, you know, being personable. People like working with you. People stand on a table for you, you know. So when I compare it to CFL guys, like, what was the first couple of years of your career like? And obviously, like, maybe people don't know what you went through. You went through a lot of issues, and explain that and what went you on. So here's a couple of questions, like, you know, rookie year. Talk about when you got here and what you had to overcome.
Yeah, so I kind of had 2 rookie years because I got cut from the Cowboys, came up, and I was on practice roster the last, 7-8 weeks of 2010. And at the end of the season, we were about to make the playoffs if we won. And I didn't really know how the CFL worked at all. At that time, I was just, I just want to play football, and that was my next opportunity. And Herbie came and had me come up to the coach's office, and it was Richie Hall was the head coach at the time, and I escapes me who the assistant GM was. Eric Tillman was a GM, but he wasn't in town. Can't remember who it was, and they sat me in a room and basically told me that they were releasing me, and I didn't understand the implications of it. They didn't really explain to me that they were releasing me because of roster numbers, and they were planning on having me come back the next year. And so I sat there, and like I was recently released from the Cowboys, just getting cut from Edmonton. And I sat there and I didn't really say anything. And it was probably, 10 seconds where I was kind of fuming, just like, but I wasn't going to say anything. And Richie, bless his heart, nicest guy in the world, was like, you can tell us how you're feeling. And so I kind of went off, like I cussed him out, and I was like, I think this is basically horse shit. You're cutting someone that can help your organization. Like, how could you know what I can do off scout team for 6 weeks? Mm-hmm. And so basically cussed him out, walked out of there, grabbed my stuff. Eric Tillman called me and was like, hey man, I just heard what happened. And I'm like, dude, why'd you even bring me up here? Like, this is ridiculous. I'm in Canada, and you're just, cutting me off of nothing basically. He's like, man, that's like, they should have told you, like, I see you as the quarterback of the future here. We plan on bringing you back next year. Like, they basically didn't cut you correctly. And I'm like, all right, man. But like, I just kind of, wore it. Came back the next year, played great in the preseason. I played in about 40-mile-an-hour winds against Saskatchewan in a preseason game. And I went like 6 for 8 for 70 yards and a touchdown. And I remember throwing a corner out to Nate Kuhorn where I threw it as hard as I could. And at the time I could throw like 65 yards. And this thing traveled like 32 yards in the air because we're going into a heavy breeze. I threw a touchdown, came off on the field, and I remember thinking, like, that was it. Like, I made the team. I performed better than all the quarterbacks that were there that year. I mean, it was like Giles and Kerry Joseph and Eric Ward was the other quarterback, and I felt like I performed better than any of them. And that barbecue thing came around. I got told – actually, they didn't even tell me anything. I sat in the room in my hotel until like 4:00 p.m. And I remember like hanging out with Greg Peach, and I'm like, dude, something feels weird. Like, I don't know what's happening because nobody told me I'm on the team. They're like, if they didn't tell you you're cut, then you're good. And then all of a sudden got a phone call, and they told me they were going to put me on IR because at the time you could just put someone on the IR and they could still
9 games. Yep.
So basically made me the fourth quarterback, and nobody ever talked to me about it. I went through the whole season where I got paid my full salary, practiced, played a ton of golf. Didn't understand why. Like, it went from like I was kind of getting like number 2 reps, and then I played great, and the other guys didn't play that great. To the next practice, I had 0 reps. No one talked to me, and playing the last game, and it was just like the wildest scenario. So I had to kind of plow through 2 years of really no communication, didn't understand it. But every time, like in that preseason game, and then the next year I was on the chopping block, and I had 4 or 5 times in preseason games in my first 3 or 4 years where you talked about, like, whenever you started talking about staying power in Winnipeg, like I had never heard that before. I was like, dude, I have that, because there was 4 or 5 times where I walked onto that field and I knew if I don't lead a touchdown drive right now, like, football's over for me. And every time I went out and did it. And it was the same thing when I took over in 2016. Going into that game in Edmonton was, you've done this, however many times now. Like, this is another one. You don't go perform today, like, potentially everyone's getting fired. Maybe you get cut, like, whatever. Like that was, I was playing with all of that on the line, and that was when I played my best football. But I think I learned all of that from my first couple of years, and I learned a lot of that from Kerry Josephs. Was my biggest mentor. It took me from being a really good college quarterback to being a pro. Like, I would go in at 6 a.m. and he was already done running and sweating, and he's like, "What time did you get here?" "Oh, I got here at 5. It's like, okay, so I need to be here at 5. And like, that was where, like, I learned to be a pro, was in those first couple of years where nothing made sense. Nobody communicated with me, and it was just plow through it all. I have tunnel vision on where I want to be, and kind of no matter what's thrown at me, I'm going to get there. And that was going to always my mindset.
I think the thing people don't have a good understanding about and have to realize, and it's funny you talk about the 9-game injured, because the exact same thing happened. Like, I remember talking to Drew Tate. Drew Tate was with us 7 and 8 in Saskatchewan. Same thing. And what people don't know, you get put on the 9-game, you sign it, you get your full contract. So as a coach, you're like, well, he's getting paid. What does he care, right? But they just want to hear. And I remember talking to him at the end of the year, and he said the exact same thing. He's like, Lapo, you told me what had to happen, like that I was 4th string at the end of training camp, and I'm going to be, basically they said they slapped this 9-game in front of me, and then it's the end of the year. Like, there's no conversation in between. Like,
none.
Like, well, why didn't I go off it and everything? And I was like, I'll never forget that again, Drew. Like, so I always made sure, like, as a head coach in Winnipeg, like at the bye week, when we came home from the bye week, you had to sit with all your players and you had to talk to them where you're at, why you're on the PR, why you're on the 9-game or 6-game, why you're on these spots, because guys just want to hear. Just tell me what's going on, right? I get I'm getting paid, but I'm not up here to get paid. I'm up here to start and play football games. So
I think my second 9-game I signed was just handed to me by one of the trainers. It was just like, hey, go sign this. I'm like, all right.
The players don't mind it. They just want to be communicated to it, right? Yep. So, it sounds like working hard was the lesson you learned about being a pro. But what are the memories early on in that career that kept you around? Or was great memories of that time when you got opportunities to play? And I know you had an injury and all that stuff, but any of those early years before Winnipeg?
Yeah, I mean, I think that really helped me that Greg Peace and JC Sherritt, who were college teammates of mine, were with me in Edmonton. And so during those couple of years where I felt like I was just fighting for my career every single day, I had them to lean on at home. Had my wife as well, but at least I had like the 2 guys that went through the college grind with me, just, that encouragement and be ready. And man, I just really was obsessive about staying ready so you don't have to get ready, as a young guy, as a backup. And anytime I got my opportunity, I mean, I remember in Edmonton, we had a game in Montreal where we didn't do anything on offense. We were down like 20-3 with, I think, like 7 or 8 minutes left, and they put me in. And first play, threw a 100-yard touchdown to Fred Stamps. Got the ball back, marched right down the field, threw another touchdown to, I think, Kerry Koch maybe. Got the ball back, went right back down the field, threw another touchdown to Fred Stamps. And so I was basically dueling with Anthony Calvillo in the fourth quarter. Really just like kind of a surreal thing. All of a sudden I threw for like 260 yards in the last 7 minutes of the game and 3 touchdowns. And we had to go for 2 to tie it up to go to overtime, and we didn't get it. But it was one of those experiences where that was the first time, I think it was probably year 3 for me, where it was like, okay, like I can play here. And so up until that moment when you just keep getting stuck as a 4th quarterback or, barely getting to show 1 or 2 drives in the preseason, and you got to do well or otherwise you're probably cut. And so 2 years of that, and then finally getting on the field in a real scenario and performing, that was where it was like, okay, I can be a starter in this league. And so that was kind of my first time where I think my mind switched to stop fighting for your life. And
well, I looked at that film because I'm looking at my notes and I don't think we have time to go over it, but I have my evaluation, everybody, of Matt Nichols. And I says, Matt recognized coverage versus Montreal. He recognized a blitzing Sam linebacker, changes his drop, hits a receiver on a vertical play. And I'm just like, whoa, he can see pictures. And, that's kind of what you want, guys who can see pictures and throw the football. So, no, and that got you to Winnipeg and then got you starting. All right. So, what have you taken from, because I love, now you're in the insurance business, what have you taken from Osh or Richie Hall or Buck, me, or whatever that you take to your business now? What football lesson have you taken besides preparation, hard work? Is there anything, that you can think of?
I mean, I was super raw going to college, and I feel like I learned a lot from, Coach Baldwin there. And then I feel like just every step of the way, I learned from a couple head coaches of what not to do, how not to be a leader. I also, then all of a sudden, you find yourself in a position, kind of right place, right time, where I got you and Osh and Buck. It was just like the perfect scenario for me, where it was like I had one of the most respected guys in the league who did everything that anyone could ever do in the game with Osh. And then then I had you, who had been in so many facets around the league and different OC jobs at different organizations and head coach in a couple different places. And so I felt like, from all those experiences that you could impart on us. And then I had Buck, who had recently played my position in the city I'm playing in, who knew exactly what I was going through. I mean, you don't know what it's like to be starting quarterback in Winnipeg unless you are one, because they're just great. I mean, I'll go to breakfast on a game where it's a must win, and then just happen to see a newspaper next to the cashier stand that says, "Is it time to bench Nichols?" And it's like, all right, this is insane. And then you go out and throw for 360 and 4 touchdowns and win, and everyone's like, "Oh, is it MVP this year?" And so just, I mean, the roller coaster ride of it. So I just had the perfect scenario, I think, for success in that building. But I think what I've always took was just how to treat people. Being competent is the biggest thing for me. Like, the reason people in my job now want to go with me, the reason why people wanted to play for me, the reason why my teammates love me was because I knew what I was doing. They could rely on me. And, they knew that when we lined it up, I had put in the time, I had put in the work, I was going to do my job and, be able to, like you always preach, the quarterback's job is to provide hope. And that's what I always tried to do. I always felt like, when they really needed me, when game was on the line, or when, our backs were against the wall and we needed to win, like I was going to go and perform for them. And when you do that consistently and you show up and you're competent and you're, you know what you're doing with your job, they ask you a question, you can give them the answer. Those are that's when people want to play for you. And I really remember it's just conviction a little bit too, where I learned that confidence from all my coaches. And then I remember when I actually took over the job kind of before that Edmonton game, I went in at the end of a Calgary game, and I remember
right down
I stepped in the huddle and was like, demonstrative, told them exactly what was going to happen. I, said, telling guys, hey, you're hot if the Sam comes, and, whatever, like giving little notes as we're going. We marched right down the field, throw a touchdown to Weston. And I remember after the game talking to Weston, because I didn't think much about it. I was just going in to try and perform and, win a job. And Weston was like, dude, as soon as you said the first 3 or 4 words there, I just saw everyone just like perk up, like, holy shit, like, we're going to play football now. And so, when people respond to that confidence, and so that's something I carry over to where, when I go and talk to someone later today, what I'm telling you is the best thing for you. And I've done my homework, and, people believe that when you're competent in your job.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, like, I always I used to talk to the players, as you would have known, like, there's 2 things I care about is 1, I'm competent in my job, and 2, how I treat people. Like, it's like, if you do those 2 things well, I don't care what business you're in, you're going to do a good job in things. And, but a lot of people don't understand the work it takes to be competent, and because you might do all the work and still not be good. Right? You're a great quarterback in high school, college, pros, but there also takes guys who have that ability don't work well enough sometimes and hard enough. You certainly.
Which I kind of always tell young kids that that can be a separator, though, because I probably beat out 50 plus guys in my career that were more talented than me, that had a stronger arm and were more athletic and whatever. But, I had enough physical gifts where that competence and hard work and confidence separator is what allowed me to win jobs over guys that, technically maybe had more natural ability than me.
Mm-hmm. Let's finish with this, and we don't have to go anywhere. Like, I want to talk about the quarterback room. That's one thing I was always proud of, how we did our processes and what you took from that. And like, Buck was awesome. It was great to have Buck in there. And then, we had a good facility. That's half the battle, that we had a nice facility to be able to go through. And every morning, for those who don't know, we would start practice at 9 a.m., but 8 a.m. every day I had a meeting with the quarterbacks. And it would be Buck, me, and we'd have breakfast first. And my goal was like, hey, first 15 minutes, what are you watching on TV? What's going on in your family? Listen, we're not going to talk football. We got all day to talk football. But just trying to, hey, what's going on with the single guys? What's going on? Anything we could do to not be involved in football, and then get into, like, our preparation. And it was funny, I saw Arbuckle a couple of weeks ago, and or early in the season, and he was talking to me, and then his quarterback coach came over. He's like, oh, he gave me like 3 good things about the quarterback room, like, I guess our cadences, he's like, oh my God, how many cadence you do and how you prep the cadences. And he had a couple other things that we did. And I'm like, oh, that's nice to hear of what happened in the quarterback room and stuff like that. So let's talk about your preparation and what you liked out of the quarterback's room.
Yeah, I loved it. And it's funny, the evolution of it, where young in my career, I was the guy that kind of didn't want to step on people's toes, and I let the veterans talk, and I heard all these stories from 10 years ago in the CFL that I had no idea about. And then all of a sudden,
can you see that there's a picture of our room? This is like yeah, that's an old picture I found in 2016, all these whiteboards we have in there.
Yep.
Crazy, all this stuff.
But then in the blink of an eye, I was, me and Buck and you were having stories about 6-7 years ago in the CFL, and these young guys had no idea what we were talking about. And half of mine and Buck's conversations and yours were movie lines from older movies, and some of these young kids just had no idea. Strevler had a list of like 30 movies. Anytime we would say a line, and like, what, you've never seen that? Put it on your list. And
we had a list in the quarterback room. That was a great thing. The movies I had to see. Right, that little kid tell him the story of the little kid from Syracuse. Remember that guy who transferred up, and he was kind of annoying in the meetings. And remember when he saw the picture? That's when I did the movie list. He saw the picture of the Godfather. Do you remember what he asked you?
Yeah. Didn't he ask if it was you and Buck or something?
He asked if it was my grandfather.
Your grandfather, yeah.
It's like, what? That's the Godfather. I had a picture of the Godfather in my office, and he thought it was crazy, like.
Yeah, but then I loved, we had pictures of ourselves with how many attempts with no interceptions. And so that was a pride thing when you could, add 34 more attempts to your list. Oh, look at that.
There it is. So explain to what we would do here.
Yep. So if I, let's say I had 30 attempts without an interception, and then we played a game and I threw 34 times and didn't throw a pick, then I would be able to go erase it and write 64 on there. And we would try and have as many as we could, because I mean, you win football games by not turning the ball over. That's not my ball; it's a team's ball. That's ingrained in my head. Yeah. And so that was a real important thing, and it sucked, man. Like going up there and having to erase it and rate 5, right? Like that was
from 180 to 5. Oh
yep.
My God.
Yeah, especially when it's a ball that gets tipped at the line of scrimmage or something and gets picked. It's like, oh man, I had such a high number going. And then we had a cork board full of every quarterback and coach around the league that got caught with palms up.
You want to explain to people what palms up is?
Yeah, palms up is body language where you go like this and everyone does it, right? Palms up. Palms up means F you. And we don't show up our teammates or our coaches on the field. You can go have conversations with them on the sideline. But if Darvin dropped a ball and I was to do that, I'm basically saying F you. And then what's he gonna do when I overthrow him and he's wide open? And so like we took that completely out. I still talk. Me and Allie do it with my daughters. Like see other girls on the soccer field doing it. It's like, if you ever do that, like I'm gonna go over to your coach and tell him to take you out. Like that looks so terrible. Like that was an important thing for us. And by the end of it, we had every quarterback and probably head coach. Buck was after the OCs, the guys that were on the ground. But we had a full cork board that was completely filled. Every now and then, I'll still send you one when a bad one shows up.
You sent me one this year. Somebody did that. Yeah, we had a leading candidate. Yeah, there was. And that was I was at Minnesota doing professional development, as coaches you sometimes go, and I was sat with the coaches, and the receiver coach from Minnesota said, who was watching film, and one of the guys couldn't get one of the no huddle calls in spring ball, and he did that, and he says, you know what? The head coach is going to send me a text later of you doing that, and you know what he's going to say? He's like, you're saying F you to everybody else, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm totally stealing that. Yeah. Right. And yeah, that took on its own world, but I still do it with my kids. I still talk to my kids, same thing. Like, don't palms. You're not allowed to palms up anybody. It's about us, not anything else. And the ability to spend that hour. And when I did talk to Arbuckle, he says, none of the head coaches I've been around, they were all busy when you become a head coach, but I still made sure I was in there as a head coach from 8 to 9, whether it was Winnipeg or Ottawa. Just because you need that time, because you lose time with the quarterbacks. Like, you lose time during the day. You got to go do something else or this or that. You don't have as much time to be able to do that. But that was kind of our little sanctuary for an hour to go. And I always wanted to make sure one coach I was with, or a player, Damon Allen said this, is like, Lapo, make sure this meeting's not the same meeting. Most of the guys, they just repeat the same, like we have the exact same meeting in the 8 to 9 as we just do the same thing with the wideouts. So yep. I always made sure there was a little bit something different. It was watching the interceptions, of every team in the league and making sure that was important. Or Kevin Glenn. How about we trade for Kevin Glenn and we had to watch the interception cut up? Remember that?
Oh, yeah. He was on it.
He was on it. He was like, we watch the interceptions of everybody and what they did. And we traded for him. He had just thrown like 4 picks, so we had to watch his game. And but if you think about it, we had those quarterback room years. It was, we had Dom, Bennett, Kevin Glenn in 16, I think, came late, right? And then Lefevre was great to have in that room.
He was one of your all-time favorite players you've ever coached, and I don't care if you don't agree or not, but I know that he is one of your favorite all-time players you've ever coached.
I loved him as a college player, and he was a funny dude. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I enjoyed him, right? Like, he didn't play much for us, but yeah. So, remember the first time he did a follow and he fell down? Like, if I see that clip, I still send it to him. Yeah. He was great to have in that room. Who else was in that room that year? That would have been 17. And then 18, it was you and Strevler. And then 19, obviously, Zach. Can you talk a little bit about, the one thing, I think all teams that win have good quarterback rooms and good relationships. So talk about you to Strevler to you to Strevler to Zach. You know what I mean? A little bit how you helped facilitate all that stuff, or you facilitated that room.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely takes buy-in from the players. I mean, just, there's a lot of me people out there, and I feel like, I have been in those rooms before where in the media, they might say all the right things, but behind closed doors, like, I know this guy's rooting for me to fail type of thing. And like the people that just brought into the building in Winnipeg weren't those people. And, you know, it helped me too. That was, you know, a little bit later in my career, I felt like I was established, played some really good football, and I really just wanted to win a championship. And so whatever it took, whether it was me playing or not playing, you know, it also helped that I think out of everyone I played with in my entire career, Strev is probably the one that I talked to the most out of mine, which, I mean, you know, you would think it'd be Weston or, you know, some of these guys that, like, I played a lot of great football with. And if we hung out, it would be like yesterday that we saw each other. But Strev is like one guy that I talk to very consistently. And so we just really became really great friends, and we really supported each other. And, you know, I knew he could do some things that I couldn't do and vice versa. And we knew that, you know, we kind of started developing a thing where it was tough to defend. And, you know, neither one of us, you know, wanted the other one to fail in any way. It's like we just wanted to win football games. And then, you know, Zach coming in was big for us, man. I mean, obviously it was a big turning point in my career, but, you know, it all happened because of an injury, which is out of everyone's control. You know, there's no reason to have any animosity towards anyone. It's like, that's just part of football, man. It sucked that it happened during probably the best year of my career, in the prime of my career. But also, you know, I had put us in a position at that point. I think we were, you know, 8-1 or 7-1 or something. Like, I wanted a ring, and, you know, we were going to get there by getting Zach up to speed and making sure he's ready to play. And so, you know, felt like it was my job to help that happen. Like, I was there to help win a championship. I wasn't physically able to for the back half of that season, but, you know, my contribution was going to be being in, you know, eyes and, you know, advice giver for these guys that can be on the field. And so, you know, it's a crazy sport. You know, those types of things happen. I was able to fight through a lot of stuff. I mean, most people don't know that I tore my ACL a second time and never got it fixed. I played 3 more years with no ACL in my right knee and still don't have one. You know, you give your blood and sweat and body parts to the game, and sometimes it doesn't love you back. And some, you know, but when you look at the big picture, like it really did. I played for 12 years. You know, raised my family during those years. Played for a lot. Like I said, I had multiple scenarios where it's either go do something great or you're done. And every time I answered the bell. And so very proud of kind of what I did over the course of my career. And, you know, it extended out a little bit past that season, but that was really kind of, you know, the end of, you know, me playing what I think is my best football.
Well, in what I don't think people understand is, like, when Streveler gives you a lot of credit because he, like Kerry Joseph did to you, you picked him up early. You guys we're going to be at the facility for 6 a.m. We're going to do this.
5 a.m. 5 a.m.
5 a.m. club. That's what it was called. Okay. So when those guys were there before, I would meet with Buck at 6:30 to 7:30. They were already deep into it. You guys would go over the game film, go over the call sheet and everything.
We also I know there was a year where we followed Shadur Sanders' recruiting journey. So that was like, we kind of took a play out of your playbook of, like, our first 10 minutes was looking on Instagram about where did Shadur visit this week. And
nice.
So we kind of didn't start right away of just turning on film at 5 a.m. It was probably 5:20 by the time we turned it on.
You watch The Office while you're doing your work too, right? You guys
watched The Office, and then one year we watched, I think we watched QB1, which was like a high school quarterback. So Spencer Rattler was on there one year, and I think Justin Fields. And so we would have like that playing. I think we had Last Chance U play in the back. It was just kind of our background noise, and so we kept it light, but we were in there, you know, getting a lot of work done before everyone else.
Well, as I started out, like, the trajectory of where the Bombers are, I don't think it happens unless we get a quarterback in the building that performs at a high level. And Drew Willie was great, just that hadn't won enough football games. And you coming in, we went 8 in a row, make the playoffs. We lose a tough playoff game, but that gives us ability. And 17, you had a great year. and we got some free agents that way, and then hosted a playoff game. And then after that, that gets us, a bunch of free agents. And then that's how we get. Now, Osh gets those guys. The stadium gets those guys. But if we're in the playoffs, that makes it even better for us to get Big Hill, right? And then we get Willie Jefferson. Because some organizations they don't have the talent to win a Grey Cup yet, and you have to build it, but you have to win enough to keep that. You certainly did that, Matt. And that's why Winnipeg's where I'll always say that. That's why Osha's gotten extensions. That's why I got another head coaching job, because of what you put up on tape. I'm just calling the plays that I think you do well and all that stuff. You guys got to do it on the field, and when you do it, and sometimes people are funny. They'll say, somebody hasn't called me for a head job, this or that, and well, you have to be successful, right? You have to be. So ever since you took over 17, 18, 19, we had one of the top offenses in the CFL. And you could have been even better. I think sometimes people say, well, we ran the ball a lot too, right? Because we had a great line and we had a great running back. So, but that success led to me having opportunities again. So, no, hats off, man. So, I appreciate everything you did for me. And those are a lot of fun days, man. I remember all those. And it's good, and it's happy to see you're still involved and watching and keeping track.
I feel like the last couple of weeks have kind of fallen off just because the playoff picture is already kind of formed.
Yeah.
But I'll be watching. We pretty much Allie and I watch most every game, and we'll be watching the playoffs, and I love it. It gave our family a lot, and it even gave us a Canadian kid. My youngest was born in Winnipeg, and so she's a citizen with 2 passports, and it'll always be a part of us and our family, and continue watching.
Awesome. Thanks for having you on. Thanks for coming on, Matt, and looking forward to continuing the conversation.
All right.